What is up, wrestling fans, and welcome to the Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show, not live edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast for WWE Crown Jewel 2025. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, and I want to remind you that I apologize for my audio quality on this episode and for the next, maybe another two podcasts. I don't know, whatever it's going to be. As I said before in the predictions for Crown Jewel, I am currently not in the country. I do not have any of my equipment at all, so I am recording this on my phone on Discord, which is not an optimal setup. I'm trying a different room this time around, though, so maybe the echo is not necessarily as bad. The audio quality is what it is. I'm pretty much stuck with just working with my phone. I don't have a microphone at all, and my AirPods are actually even worse. So next time around, I'll try to figure out something. Maybe I'll buy a headset or something, if whatever it means. But apologies for that, and apologies for how this isn't a live edition like it normally would be. But I certainly do not have the internet connectivity to be able to do that right now either. Which sucks because I really, really liked this pay-per-view, and I really wish that this would have been one of those editions where I could do a traditional pay-per-view post show and have everybody in the live chat. It's like 1 o'clock here or so right now. I guess it's like noon in the United States, Eastern time zone. But yeah, this would be a very, very positive pay-per-view post show. I'm still going to keep this short just because this doesn't let me record super long without running into some glitches. So I'm going to temper what I've got going on. I'm also going to do a podcast in the future when I come back. I'll be back around like the 21st. So 10 days from now or so, I'm going to do like a dark cast or something. I don't know. We're going to talk about all those releases that had happened because I think it's kind of ridiculous that they're getting rid of people like Hayes Jameson and Wesley and Zeta Steel and all. So I will address that in the future too. Apologies as well for not being able to get the hot tags up correctly. That's entirely on me, not setting up my Discord correctly and all. We're trying to do this stuff on the fly here. I did as much prep as I could, and it still wasn't enough. But nevertheless, even though I don't have the proper setup here and I don't have the proper audio and everything, I did want to get my thoughts out about Crown Jewel while it was still available and, still fresh on everybody's minds. I will talk about it some more on a future episode and, dive into, some other things. But I wanted to particularly do this because I really enjoyed this pay-per-view. And before I get started, keep in mind too, though, we want to do more with, and I've even thought about trying to do some kind of live thing on here like this, but yeah, now's not the time for me to mess around with those kind of things. But join the Discord, we'd love to have you. And keep in mind, if you want to help support us, if you want to make sure that I buy a microphone that I can just put in here and keep in here and all that, then patreon.com/smarkoutmoment, the YouTube channel membership, the thanks button, no live button because we're not live right now, but Redbubble and TeePublic for merchandise as well. So keep that in mind too. And yeah, plug stuff out of the way and hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, get all that stuff. Yeah, hit the like button. But yeah, this pay-per-view is one that I have added to my best of the year pay-per-view list, and I have a match of the year candidate on here. So, very quick breakdown of what had happened. We started off with a 2-hour pre-show that I did not actually watch this time around. This is the first pre-show that I just flat out haven't watched. Partially because I didn't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and partially because it was kind of tough for me to figure out the setup here. Watching this internationally meant Netflix, but Netflix wasn't actually letting me do this until around 10 minutes after the pay-per-view had started. So I was on my computer trying to get ESPN Plus to work, which needed the VPN, and then it's a whole complicated ass thing. So I didn't watch the pre-show, but I highly doubt that I missed anything on there. First match of the show was the Australian street fight between Bronson Reed and Roman Reigns, with Bronson Reed coming out on top. And he did so with a little bit of help from Braun Breaker and from some miscommunication from the Usos. Jimmy and Jay got involved to try to help out Roman, only for Jay to accidentally spear Roman Reigns through one of those Slim Jim tables. So Tribal Chief upset with them after the match, and with due cause, because why wouldn't he be? What the hell? You're supposed to listen to me, and you're getting too big for your britches, kind of a thing. Um, I thought it was a good match. I like that Bronson Reed won. I had said prior to it that I thought that he should win and that it should be through some kind of, Braun Breaker helps out and they do some other kind of stuff here and there. And also, I think that they did the pretty much exactly what I would hope that they would do. Um, Not necessarily that I would have gone with the Jey Uso spear through the table thing, but I actually think that that's better than what I was pitching. In like I don't know, remember where I posted it in some kind of an article about the idea about like Jimmy and Jay having an argument or Roman trying to do something or whatever, then getting caught up in the mix. Oh, now I got coughing in the middle of my podcast that I can't mute myself for. Terrible, terrible audio quality. I apologize. Um, I think that this was better, actually, than I was anticipating. I still think that they could have gimmicked it up a little bit better. This Australian street fight didn't feel quite Australian enough for me, other than the crowd. Great crowd for the show. Bodine was in the crowd telling me some of the chants that might not have necessarily made the feed about, what they were chanting towards Bronson Reed and all. But by all accounts, Bodine seemed to love that. So, and if I would have been doing a live post show thing on here with my traditional setup, I would have tried to get Bodine on there. So maybe I'll try to get him on a podcast coming up when I'm back in the States. Um, but yeah, I thought that this was a good match. I'm glad that Reed won. And a little bit later on in the show, Paul Heyman praised Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker and alluded again to the idea that Seth Rollins needed to win his match on his own. It's a meritocracy, he said. And I liked that they did that too, because then it ended up showing that, like, at any given time, they could oust Seth Rollins, and it could just be entirely on Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. Now, of course, I didn't anticipate that would happen anytime soon, but nevertheless, I liked that they did that. I liked that Reed won. I like that Roman's mad at the Usos, and it gives them a team that can go into War Games with some issues that can kind of make it a little bit less obvious that the baby faces would win. So, by all accounts, massive thumbs up on my part. Not the biggest thumbs up of the whole night, but that's because some other things were just better. Stephanie Vaquer then won the Women's Crown Jewel Championship. She beat Tiffany Stratton. It's a battle of the moonsaults in some ways because Tiffany Stratton has the prettiest moonsault ever. And Stephanie Vaquer was able to block that with her knees coming up and then hit the corkscrew moonsault that they haven't quite figured out a name for yet, which I hope that they go with something that's better than the SVB, because that's really stupid whenever people go like, oh, it's the Asuka lock. Oh, it's because it's a lock that Asuka puts on. Like, you can give it some other kind of name, Like, I don't mind if it's like a pun on somebody's name, like Cody Rhodes has the Crossroads. But if you just call your move your name plus the move, it's really dumb. Like when you get to like JBL did the clothesline from hell. He didn't call it the JBL clothesline. So I hope that this doesn't just become like the Stephanie Vaquer corkscrew moonsault, and then it's just like, oh, it's the SVCM or something like that. They should call it something else. Like they have the Devil's Kiss, and that's a good name for that. And go with something along those lines. I'll spin some other ideas off the top of my head. They wouldn't listen to me even if I was pitching it anyway. But um, I like the move. She seems to be getting that down a little bit better now, which is good because if they're going to continue to have her do that move, then the better that she is at it, the better that it'll come off. I think that I proved myself correct with my predictions when I said whoever gets the pin in the tag team match on SmackDown is going to lose. And I was going into this assuming that Stephanie Vaquer was going to win anyway, but once Tiffany Stratton got the pin on SmackDown, I was like, okay, then that's it. It's almost 100% guaranteed at this point that it's just going to be Stephanie Vaquer winning. And I think it's the right call too, because she is somebody who is, she's a champion in the making in a lot of ways. Even though she is a champion, she's still somebody who they could boost more than Tiffany Stratton, who's been a champion for 10 months. And then, Stephanie Vaquer gets a win over a babyface because she's a babyface. You could do that perfectly fine, and nobody loses anything. It doesn't make Stratton look weak and all. So I think the right call was made here. They had a good match. Thumbs up on that front, too. But then you get the biggest thumbs up of the whole show. John Cena against AJ Styles. And this is a major contender for match of the year for me. I liked everything about this match. I loved the beginning, where during the intro, it seemed like they didn't give AJ Styles a heads up. about his introduction. It seems like this might have been like John Cena doing it to show some respect to AJ Styles, but he's introduced as the what was it, the pinnacle or the definition. I think it was the definition. The definition of total nonstop action, the undisputed or whatever total boss of the Bullet Club, which I thought was kind of funny. This is like a F you, Finn Balor. Um, the face that runs this place and everything like that. So he seemed like he was taken aback as like, oh damn, like, oh, that's really nice. And the whole match was just move after move of fun moments, from the skull crushing finale from John Cena, and he hits a choke slam. He finishes with a tombstone and an attitude adjustment. They do references to TNA people and people that for AJ Styles is, more of like, we never got to Mojo versus John Cena, which is like, I hate that we didn't get that feud, but they got the Coquina Clutch in there, the Angel Wings. They did the Walls of Jericho. They were teasing the 619, which I thought was funny, which is like, John Cena's not going to be able to do that. And I think that was a good little, like, you want to tease that, and then, he's not going to try it. But they did that. They did the Sister Abigail was a good moment. It seemed like that was a very emotional moment. This is what this retirement thing should have been. And I'll still defend the idea that I think that the heel turn was a good idea at first. They just botched the whole execution of it afterward. The idea of the heel turn was good. And so far, this has been my favorite thing about this whole retirement. This match was awesome. If you get a chance to go back and rewatch this or watch this for the first time, I definitely, definitely recommend it. It's gonna be hard to beat for my favorite match of the year, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed this match. So again, for anybody that wants to complain and say that like Tony hates absolutely everything, you're not hearing any bad things about this pay-per-view from me, are you? And that's just because I enjoyed it. So I like what I like. I dislike what I dislike. It is what it is. Good things are good. However you want to phrase it like that. I enjoyed the hell out of this match. I thought this was really great, and it's going to be really hard to follow it up. And I kind of have a feeling this is still going to end up being the best match of John Cena's whole, retirement tour and everything. One of my favorite matches of John Cena's career, and it's so interesting that he and Styles really work well together. So even though I was a little bit down on the sense of there are still some other people that I really wanted to see Cena up against, like Braun Breaker and Drew McIntyre, and I wanted to match with, I'm still hoping that they do Dominic Mysterio and everything. He only has 4 appearances left, and I was thinking, oh, well, we've already seen the AJ Styles thing before, but you know what? It was worth it. This was fantastic. So hats off to John Cena. He gets his 100th pay-per-view victory, which is awesome as well. That's cool that they were able to check that off the box. Check that box off the list. That's what I wanted to say. Um, yeah, awesome. Absolutely awesome. Iyo Sky and Rhea Ripley then followed it up with a win over the Kabuki Warriors. This was my least favorite match of the night, but when it was this good of a match, and that's the least favorite, that's saying a lot. Rhea Ripley over as hell, of course, with the crowd. It's in Australia, so you would expect that, but she's already super popular as it is. They did the good hot tags in here. They had the right finish. Just, thumbs up again. Like, this was, and it's hard to follow Cena and Styles and to, lead into the main event and everything. So kudos to all 4 of these women. They did all put a great show on. And, they could have gone in a couple different directions. This could have been Rhea Ripley winning the title, or it could have been Rhea against Iyo again, or, any different booking strategies that we've talked about over the past couple of weeks or so. But even though this was just a tag match that very easily could have been on Monday Night Raw, it felt like a bigger deal because it was in Australia and because it was following some good matches and everything. So, yeah, another just, positives, all pros, no cons kind of a thing. Big fan. And then we got the main event, the men's Crown Jewel Championship match. Cody Rhodes loses to Seth Rollins. He's not able to do the back-to-back thing, but that's no surprise. They were putting all of the weight on Seth Rollins to win this match, and I liked that they didn't backtrack on the interference angle. And instead of just being like, all right, well, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed aren't going to show up, but Brock Lesnar shows up, and he's the one that screws over Cody Rhodes, or it's Drew McIntyre, or whoever it might be. They could have gone in a couple different directions here, and I don't think that any of them are as good as what they did. I've seen a lot of pitches for like Rollins wins by blank or Cody loses and that triggers this. Cody wins and that triggers this and whatever. I really like how they used the Rolex watch here, and I like how simple it was. Rollins has that watch out. He picks it up. He thinks about using it. The referee's going to disqualify him, so he doesn't. But the moment that he sees that the referee is incapacitated, he uses it and hits Rhodes in the head. That gets him a chance to hit a stomp, and then a super stomp is what they were calling it. They've called it like an avalanche stomp in the past and whatever, but he jumps off the ropes and does a stomp. And, that puts Cody out, and Cody doesn't look weak at all. He lost the match in a relatively fair match, but with a little bit of shenanigans with the Rolex. And that's just enough to keep Rollins as a heel and to give him that doubt of like, well, you wouldn't have beaten Cody if it wasn't for that. But at the same time, he's able to say that he won without the interference from Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, and no Paul Heyman out there to cause any distractions, none of that stuff. So it boosts him up as well. Rollins gets to lord over that he is the crown jewel, and that gives him an edge over Cody in the War Games match. He's able to carry that momentum into WrestleMania against Roman Reigns or whoever they end up deciding to go in that direction. Big fan of it. It was a hell of a match, and I'm not going to put that on my match of the year list, I don't think, but it is a match that is very, very good. So we had 5 matches, all of them were good, and from good to very good to great. And Cena and Styles in particular really just like boosted this pay-per-view even more. So I don't know. This might end up being my favorite pay-per-view of the year. And again, I wish that I would be able to do this as a live post show with my normal microphone equipment and everything like that, and have a live chat and be able to interact with everybody on here. It's just the way that timing worked out with scheduling and everything like that, and me not wanting to lug a giant Blue Yeti microphone and everything else like that. Um, I love this pay per view. This was awesome and much needed, especially after a series of releases where if they would have followed up the whole bunch of firings that I'm not particularly a fan of with the bad pay per view things that they've been doing here and there, then that would have been really disappointing. But they followed it up with something great. So we'll see if TNA ends up having a good pay per view tomorrow night with Bound for Glory. I'll be doing my coverage on the Ring Report and e-wrestling news. No post show following that. No coverage on Smark Out Moment because I typically just don't bother to do that on Smark Out Moment. But the more that TNA keeps being a bigger thing, I might end up having to do that stuff in Smark Out Moment in the future. And if you're listening to this and you're a big TNA fan and you want to join Smark Out Moment to do coverage, then by all means leave a fill out the form, the contact form on smarkoutmoment.com, and let me know. But the game plan for now, I don't really know the next time you're going to be hearing from me. I am certainly going to try to do something for the Wrestle Dream side of things. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that on my own like this, or if I'm going to be able to do that with Robin Callum in any capacity. It's going to depend on schedules, and it's going to depend on recording equipment stuff and everything. But the game plan is to do something along those lines, and I think that I've got things set up in a way that at the very least, if it's Robin Callum, that the two of them can do that separately and not have to worry about the Discord thing and all. Just a little bit behind the scenes information about that. So thank you to Callum, of course, for knocking out the hot tags this week, and thank you for listening to this. Make sure that you check out everything under A Mango Tree at anthonymango.com or amangotree.com and show your support for all the Smark Out Moment, Fanboys Anonymous, and my own personal things. And then keep paying attention to whatever is going to happen next, whatever it is. I don't know. But that's going to do me in for the Crown Jewel Pay-Per-View-Point post-show review, and I want to know what you have to say, so drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will see you when I see you, everybody. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and I'm being counted out.